I hate that motorcycle so much, I accidentally bought it. How does that work? Well, I'll tell you. Last week we went and we picked up our 65 Barracuda, which now has a name. That's Scribbles the Cuda. And I'll explain that in another video. But anyway, last Saturday, we're over at the previous owner's shop, paying for Scribbles. And we're standing in the shop, and I notice in the corner, he's got this Goldwing. And just making small talk, I says, oh, I see you got a Goldwing. He says, yeah, it's a great bike. I haven't ridden it in a while. I was like, okay. He says, you know, that's got to go too. He says, oh, really? Okay. What do you want for it? He says, well, make me an offer. Now, at this point, you have to understand something, right? I do not like big bikes. I like standards. I like sport bikes. I like dual sports. I like bar hoppers. I like that sort of thing, okay? Smaller bikes, tight bikes. Cruisers, you know, big cruisers, dressers, touring bikes, totally not my thing at all. In fact, I would probably say, I would hazard to say that if you were to take all of the motorcycles ever built in the world, in history, past, present, and future, that a Goldwing would probably be at the very top of the list of bikes I've never even once considered owning. Fair enough, right? So he's like, make me an offer. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really not into it. And I'm looking up, and then we walk over to the bike, and I'm looking the bike over, and it's in nice shape. It's in really nice shape. It has this mural. The whole bike is covered in this like pimptastic mural, but it's pimptastic in like a quiet, serene way. It's like I want to hate it, but I can't. It's like, so I'm looking the bike over, and everything is nice. It's never been like crashed or anything like that. It's all there. The seat's nice, the paint's nice, the chrome's nice. It's all good, right? So now I sit on it, and it's very comfortable. It's like huge. It's so expansive. It's the opposite. I like my bike small and tight, right? It's huge. And I start laughing to myself because, and I was trying to like keep it subdued, but I started laughing out loud because I was picturing myself, me, cruising down the road on this bike, and it just didn't fit. The two things just didn't go together. And I was trying to be polite, but I fell out, okay? So I'm sitting on the bike, and he reaches over, he turns on the key, and he hits the button, and the thing lights right off. It starts right up. It sounds great. Wing the throttle a couple of times, and it's got that pancake flat six, you know, the Porsche sound. I'm like, oh, that's badass. But I totally don't want this thing. So I get off the bike, and he says, go ahead, make me an offer. He says, listen, man, I got a ton of bikes already, and I'm really not into this thing. He says, you know, it's just not my cup of tea. He says, make me an offer. So I says, listen, if I got to make you an offer, I got to lowball you so low, right? It's like, it's going to be insulting, and I don't want to insult you. He says, you can't insult me. So I dug deep, and I says, I'll give you $300 for it. So he looks at me, and I'm expecting him to bark at me, right? And he doesn't. He looks at me for a second, and he says, make it 600 and you got a deal. I says, but you throw in the battery tender. He says, it's yours. And the next thing you know, I'm riding home on my 1993 Goldwing 1500. Words I never would have thought come out of my mouth. So, the Goldwing. Brief history on this thing for you guys who aren't familiar. So, originally it was introduced by Honda in 1974 as a naked bike. It was a Pancake 4,000cc naked bike, and it was supposed to be the next step up from their CB750. It turned out to be a fantastic road bike, fantastic touring bike. So owners started adding, you know, fairings and bags and stuff like that. So after a couple of years, Honda started putting those things on the bikes themselves, and they grew from 1000cc to 1200cc. And then it became the standard in touring bikes. And then you had other manufacturers like Yamaha with the Venture copying it. But nobody could really match the Goldwing for what the Goldwing was intended to do. It was just a perfect motorcycle for it. So in 1988, they redesigned the bike. They made it bigger in every dimension. They increased the engine size to 1500cc. It was fuel injected, but when they went to the larger engine, they went back to carburation. So this thing is actually carbureted. It's got two carbs, one for each bank. And this is the version that they ran from 1988 to 2000. This is also the largest dimensionally and the heaviest of all of the Goldwings. The cornerstone of the Goldwing is wretched excess, right? And that's really the only way to describe it. It's the only way to really characterize what this bike is about. It's about wretched excess. Too much of everything. Maybe that's one of the things I like about it. It's just so over the top. So a lot of you guys, everybody's seen these things, and you've always seen them whizzing down a highway, but not many people have actually gotten real up close and personal with them. So I want to give you a tour of this thing front to back. I'll illustrate what I mean by wretched excess, tell you what I don't like about the bike, and then I'll tell you why I'm going to keep it. So start at the front. I mean, yeah, wretched excess, big chrome gold wing, right? Giant headlight, giant, huge chrome covers over the brakes. So this has a pretty unorthodox braking system. Underneath those covers, it has a pair of disc calipers, but they're not plumbed the way every other motorcycle is. One caliper is off the handbrake. The other caliper is tied to the foot brake and the rear brake, so it's a linked braking system. Now, when I first rode this thing, I was riding at home, I was like, man, the front brake just sucks on this bike. You really got to get into it to slow it down. And then I found later on that it's a linked system. So when you're serious about stopping with it, you do have to use both. And when you do use both, 900 freaking pounds. But the brakes will go to work and get this thing hauled down nicely. But just the chrome, look at wretched excess. More chrome, big chrome. Radiator. Now see, this, you think this is the radiator, but it's not the radiator. That's actually the air intake for the climate control system, because it's a motorcycle, you need climate control on. The radiators aren't here, the radiators are actually on the side. And through these vents, it brings in heat, so you can have heated air, climate control. So this is where the cabin air enters. And then this is air cooling for the front of the engine. Giant mirrors, right? Like they're car-sized mirrors. Giant windshield. Giant fairing. So how efficient is this fairing? When you're sitting on this bike at highway speed, okay, it is completely calm and still in the front of the bike right here. Like you feel no wind. You'll feel just the slightest wind on the outside, the absolute tips of your elbows. And they have deflectors, just in case that's too much for you. They have deflectors you can air onto this thing so that you don't get that. But you'll only feel the slightest breeze on the outside of your elbows. The rest of you is just sitting in calm, still air. So because there's no blow through like you'd have on a normal motorcycle, you've got vents up here on both sides, and then you've got vents here and vents here. So you can bring in heat, you can bring in cool air, you can bring in a mixture of both, whatever suits you. And then you've got a well, control for the vents. The lower vents are right here, okay, and then you've got a knob on this side, and this is how you aim the headlight. You can raise and lower the headlight up and down with this one. The gauge cluster is like right out of a Honda Civic. You know, it's the usual, you know, it's a mile speedo, tachometer, temperature gauge, and a fuel gauge. And I'm knocking down about 35, 38 miles to the gallon with this, but I've been riding it pretty hard. So I imagine you can probably get about 40, 45 on a steady cruise with it. But nice gauge cluster. Cigarette lighter, because every motorcycle needs a cigarette lighter. If you want to adjust the windshield up or down, you've got these knobs. You raise this, and then you could wrestle the windshield up or down. Although I can't possibly imagine why you'd want any higher than that. How effective is that windshield? So this thing's got a cup holder here. It's got a cup holder, and the other morning I rode to work, I rode to the shop here, drinking a cup of coffee. In my life, I never imagined that I would be drinking my morning coffee on a motorcycle. But yeah, you could do it on this. So that's the climate and whatnot. Oh God, I'm going to get to this other stuff in a second. Honda spent a lot of time on the sound system on these bikes. So I guess they figured that since you're going to be doing like 1,000-mile days in the saddle, you know, you're going to go for the iron butt, that you're going to get bored sitting there in the calm, quiet bubble of the seat. So they spent a lot of effort with the communication and the sound system on these bikes. So we'll start with this. This is an SE version, and the SE comes standard with a CB radio. And what I'm learning about Goldwing culture is that the CB is really important, because when the Goldwing guys go riding together, they use the CB to communicate with each other. And along with that, you've also got these ports for intercom. So you've got one you can plug your helmet into in the front, and then your backseat passenger has one that they can plug into too. So CB and intercom. Up here you've got thumb controls for the CB and for the sound system, the rest of the sound system. This is the tape deck. So obviously this is all obsolete today, but I'm sure that there's some sort of modern Bluetooth deal that you can incorporate into this. But these are all your controls for the tape deck, and then these are the controls for the AM/FM radio. And then down here you've got, that's your gas cap, and this is actually how you raise and lower the idle speed on these bikes. And remember, this is carbureted, so you want to make an adjustment to the idle speed. There you go. On this side here, you've got cruise control, because every motorcycle needs cruise control, so we've got that here, and it works really good. What else? Okay. Now, before I talk about any of the gadgets or gizmos on this bike, this is one. It just tops it all, right? This is reverse. What motorcycle has reverse? This motorcycle has reverse. It needs reverse, because this thing is 900 pounds. And then you put a passenger on there, you're looking at 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 pounds. If you've got to back this thing up even over a pebble, you're going to struggle. So they added this reverse. And the way this works is this is tied into the starter. When you pull this out and then lift it up like this, you engage the starter directly to the drivetrain of the bike. Then you hit the starter button, and the starter button spins the starter backwards, and it backs the motorcycle up. It's slow, it's loud, but it works. Just playing with it, I want to see just how effective it was. So I backed the bike up to a curb, and I engaged reverse, hit the button, and it went, and it just climbed right up the curb. So this will save you a lot of shredded cartilage in your knees. It's necessary on this bike, trust me. It's not just a gizmo, you really do need it. So that's reverse. Now we go around to the other side of this thing, and we've got controls for the rear suspension. So it's got a rear air suspension, and you can make your adjustments here. And there's actually on the dashboard, it'll light up and it'll tell you what the PSI is. But you could raise or lower the rear suspension with these buttons. I guess depending on your passenger's dedication to the keto lifestyle, there's your control for that. And then here with these outlet button, there's a port in one of the saddlebags that if you use this outlet button, you can attach a hose to it and inflate your tires. So if you get a flat out in the middle of nowhere, you patch you plug the tire, and you can re-inflate it without any type of drama. It's got its tire inflator built right into the bike. More chrome crash bars, foot pegs, or highway pegs, I should say. Now, wretched excess, all right? Now, the wretched excess, and this is what I mean about like over the top. It's just too much, but it's just right for this bike. Wretched excess. So these are the passenger floorboards, and they're nice, broad, comfortable passenger floorboards. It has the option that you can raise it up like this, so the passenger can rest their foot in this position. That's nice. But what if your passenger is a little on the short side? that they have to stretch to reach the floorboards. Oh, that's no problem at all. All you do is reach for this lever right here, push it, and the floorboards pop up. They raise about 4 inches. Because every bike needs automatically adjustable power floorboards in the back. Goldwing. Back seat accommodations. So we've got this backrest, which is like, this is aftermarket, but from what I understand, this is also like a dealer part. So I guess this is something you could have ordered from the dealer. And it's got this nice pouch in the back so you can store stuff. You've got these armrests which slide out of the way, each with its own pouch. You've got these little cubbies right here on both sides. Grab rails. Very, very cushy seat. Very nice. It's like they knew. See, Honda knew that the guy who was going to buy this bike needed his old lady's permission to buy it. So they made sure that she had every possible consideration and accommodation in the back. I think that's one of the reasons why they sold as many of these things as they did. The wife was making a decision. So you've got all of this going on back there. Very opulent. Very, very opulent. I'm trying to think what else I might have left out. I don't know. So back here you've got the antennas. You've got the one for the radio and the one for the CB. And then of course we've got a luggage rack on top of our trunk. And then down here you've got levers. So you can open that up. You got a nice big trunk back there. And then these same levers on the side open your side saddlebags. And you got tons of room in there. Total wretched excess. I honestly don't like anything about this bike except for its excessiveness. It's just the right amount of excessive. That's the thing I think that really got me. So, what's it like to drive this? What's it like to ride this thing? So people who ride these things all the time will tell you that, oh, they handle great. You could just take them anywhere. Tail of the Dragon, no problem. You know, you can, and it will do that. But is it happy doing that? No, no. I'm telling you right now, okay? This thing feels like a barge. Yes, it handles. It'll do whatever you ask it to do, and it'll do it very gracefully. But it's a barge, and you feel every pound, right? Like when you lean this thing, it's like you're pushing the thing over, right? And then when you go to stand it back up again, it's like, whoa. It's just very ponderous. It lumbers. It's a 900-pound motorcycle. It's got 100 horsepower, but it really feels like 60 because you're pushing so much weight and a lot of wind in the front. Because I mean, just the frontal area in this bike is enormous. So, to my way of thinking, to my tastes, it's sluggish. Now, to back this up, right? Now, like I said, I know, and I don't want to insult Goldwing, guys. I know you guys love these bikes. I get it. But I think maybe they give it a little more credit than it should have. And yes, I have seen the Goldwing Precision Riders, the old guys on the Goldwings doing their tight turns and everything else. Yeah, I get that. It's beautiful, but that's stunt work. To illustrate just how sluggish these bikes are as far as handling goes, there's a trend among Goldwing owners to do what they call, to go where they call the dark side. And the dark side is using a car tire on the rear of this thing instead of a motorcycle tire. And if you guys weren't familiar, you know, a motorcycle tire is curved, you know, so it's got a very small contact patch and you roll easily from side to side. And a car tire is flat. Well, a lot of Goldwing owners use this dark side car tire modification. And they claim that it doesn't make any difference in the way the bike handles. That you couldn't tell one way or another whether it was a motorcycle tire or a car tire. I mean, that should tell you right there what the handling characteristics of this thing are like. But here's the thing about the Goldwing, and here's what set me and made me decide, yeah, I'm going to hold on to this bike. This thing does something at 70 miles an hour. Let's just say between like 60 and 80, but let's call it 70 miles an hour. This bike does something at like 70 miles an hour that no other vehicle I've ever encountered will do, okay? When the Goldwing is in its element, when it's on a long, flat slab, okay? It is perfection. It's perfection. All of that extra weight means that the cross breezes and stuff like that, passing traffic, or things that normally kind of like disturb a bike at high speed, you know, where it makes you think about it, you don't even feel it on the Goldwing. You're so isolated from the outside world. It's really like you're sitting in a car. The aerodynamics of this thing put you in a bubble. And the sound from that Pancake 6, right, that Porsche, I can't even describe it, but that sound, you know, coupled with the little bit of wind noise that you get and the isolation in that bubble is a zen deal, okay? And what I found is that when I get on a road with this thing, the miles literally disappear. It's like it puts you in this zen mode, and it's like time and space kind of like they get. Oh, I know this is going to sound crazy, but if you've ever ridden one of these bikes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You jump on this thing, and let's say you go 10 miles, you know, 70 miles an hour. It's gone in an instant. You say, well, I must have only covered like a mile. But no, it just disappears the miles. The time, it's a time machine. Very interesting, very unique. And like I said, the bike, it's a loser on a lot of different, compared to a traditional motorcycle. It loses on a lot of different levels. But in its element, doing the thing that it was designed to do, it's perfection. It's perfection. So I'm going to hold on to it. And you know, I'm not really, I'm not a motorcycle tourer. I'm not a big like motorcycle road trip guy. But this thing right here is making me want to take a road trip. So even if I use it like once or twice a year, you know, and I do a few 100-mile day with it, I think it pays for itself. What do you think of it? I paid $600 for it. You spend one day on vacation, you go someplace for one day, how much is it going to cost you, right? $600 at a minimum, and you have nothing but the memory. Well, for $600, I get the day, I get the memory, the day's experience, and I still have a motorcycle when I'm done. So I'm going to keep this thing, and I'll probably do stuff with it as we go along. I do want to update the sound system. I want to employ all of its gimmicks, and maybe even pimp it out a little more than what it actually is. Pimp my sickle. All right, so there you go. There's a tour of the motorcycle I hate so much that I had to buy it accidentally. I swear to God, that's exactly how it happened. I'll see you tomorrow.